Hey, what's up everyone? How you doing? It is me, Mr. 4K Upscaler. Sorry about this video. It's kind of late. I couldn't do it yesterday. I was busy. I had to go to bed. I had to go to sleep. As you all know, I work 6 days a week, my main job, and then I got to do this a little bit. So this video is going to be something that I want to do the best way for me to describe it is going to be the episodes of nostalgia commentary. I'm going to call it nostalgia commentary. It's basically where I commentate and walk you through it, almost like a Theater 3000. Do you guys remember that show on Sci-Fi called Theater 3000 or something like that, where you have some people commentating on the movie? So I'm kind of going to be doing the same thing for the video game. Usually it's going to be old classic games, and I'm going to talk about them and what difference there are now with the games back then and stuff like that. So it's going to be part of the episode where I'm going to be pretty much commentating on these classic old games. The games that I pretty much grew up with and played. You know, these games mean significance to me because I grew up with these games, and if you haven't played these games, it's kind of cool for you to look at these games, or maybe buy these old consoles and play these games and check them out for yourself. Alright, so we're going to start off with Resident Evil 2. As you all know, that Resident Evil 2 came out in 1998, I believe, or 1997. I think it was Nintendo 64. Came out on Nintendo 64 as well, but I think it first came out on PlayStation. I could be wrong. But I know that they both came out on Nintendo 64 and PlayStation. But I think it first came out on PlayStation before it got to Nintendo 64 later on. Or I could be wrong. I don't know. So I apologize for that. But I know that both Resident Evil 2 came out for the PlayStation and Nintendo 64. I think they were available. I'm pretty sure both of them were released for Nintendo 64. However, to me, my best experience was with the PlayStation. I think there was a total of 2 discs or 3 discs. It was a big CD jacket, and you have to swipe the disc between disc 1 and disc 2 depending on where you got in the game. There was something about consoles back then. Before I start this video, there was something about playing video games back then where you are pretty much using a disc and swiping the disc and using a memory card and storing everything onto that memory card. There was no internet where you have to be subscribed to PlayStation Plus or Xbox Live. Like, there was none of that stuff where you have to be checked in online in order for you to play a console. You can take the console with you anywhere, plug it into a TV, and you're good to go. To me, those were the good, great gaming days. If you want my honest opinion, I'm not really a huge fan of constantly being checked in online, or these games that they're charging you a ridiculous amount of money and they want you to be online all the time. And of course, I'm speaking about The Crew 2 from Ubisoft. I don't like it. I don't like the fact that you have to be connected online on the Ubisoft servers in order for you to play the game. So you want me to pay $60, and you want me to pay another 50 to 60 bucks, $120 to get the season pass and DLCs just so I can be online. That's a ripoff. Okay, those are the shitty days today. I'm sorry for the language, but being a gamer today, it sucks, because you guys don't know. Those of you who were born in this generation, you have no idea how good we have it. We had it back then in 1990s and 1980s, and how great was to be a gamer. Today, it's a whole new ball game. But anyway, let's talk about this. Let's continue and let's commentate on this a little bit. Let's watch it, and then we'll commentate on it as we go. Remember, this is back in 1998, I think.
What have we got here?
That guy's a maniac. Why'd he bite me?
Well, you guys have to remember something. You know, this is back then when we didn't have all this motion capture technology where we can render the 3D. The 3D back then, this was like, whoa. For a console, this was like a pretty big deal. You have to remember, this is like mid-90s. I think it was the game was developed in 1996 or 1997. The game was developed, and then it was released around 1998. I could be wrong. It could be 1997. But either way, you guys have to remember, back then, this is a pretty big deal. You know, 24 years ago, this was a pretty big deal. And we're talking 24 years ago, you know. And when you look at the games now compared to 24 years ago, you know, this is a huge leap forward. But for me, this was cool because people who are my generation, we were witnessing the development of video games, the evolution of video games we were witnessing. And I think that's what's so cool and unique about our generation, that we had this chance to witness all this evolution of gaming.
Right. Yeah, first day on the job. Great, huh? Name's Leon Kennedy. Nice to meet you.
Mine's Claire. Claire Redfield. I came to find my brother, Chris.
Hey, could you open the glove box?
Sure. There's a gun inside.
Better take it with you.
I mean, I'm laughing right now because, you know, this was... It's like a B movie, you know. When you look at it now, it's kind of like a B movie. But remember, back then, to me, this was like, whoa, this is pretty cool. And because, you know, video games back then, they didn't evolve to the point where it was like very immersive. This was almost like very immersive, like a cinema-like experience. And then for me to experience something like this on the console back then, we're talking 24 years ago, was a pretty big deal. I know it's kind of hard for this generation to understand this, but that's the whole point of me doing these episodes, is for me to walk you down the memory lane and talk about some of these old classic games. And this is where it all started. This is it. Now, the graphics, obviously, you can't expect the graphics to be super, super high-end back then. But this type of gameplay style was something that was innovated by Capcom. And I liked it. You know, I still like this type of a style because it's just something I got used to playing Resident Evil. When you look at the textures and graphics here right now, you know, you probably are laughing when you're looking at this. But this was 24 years ago. Just imagine what a giant leap we had made from 24 years ago till now. And add another 20 years from now, and just imagine kind of a leap we're going to be pushing forward. So this should tell you and indicate just how far the games have evolved. And 10 years from now, 15, 20, even imagine 30 years from now, the way the games are going to look. It's just going to be ridiculous. I think you're going to be inside the game pretty much.
I'm keeping a close eye on things.
So when you look at this today, obviously you're gonna say, "Oh my God, this looked horrible back then." But to you, maybe this looks horrible because you're coming from this generation, and when you look at something that was 24 years ago, for you this is like, "Oh my God, this is unacceptable. Look at this." But you know what? I still find I can still play this game like this. It doesn't bother me because this was something that this is where it all began, people. This is where it all started. It started from this. This is where we saw Sony pushing the evolution of gaming, and sending a message to both Sega and Nintendo and letting them know we're going to evolve this video game digital entertainment even further. And I'm saying this not from a fanboyistic point of view, but simply saying that Sony has made that testament with their video games. They really had matured their video games, and they had pushed the envelope with their video games, with games like Metal Gear 2 and 3, and all the other games that came after that. And other companies obviously were in competition to make something and follow the same footsteps. But you know what? I can still play it. Like I said, for those of you who were born in this generation, who are like younger, who are in your teens, and you never played this game, for you this might be like laughable. Like, oh my God, look at these graphics. But you got to remember, this is where it all started. This is where it all pretty much took that giant leap of 21st century gaming. Like the Millennium, Y2K, or whatever you want to call it. This is right around the corner, hitting the PlayStation 2. And I remember there was a nickname for PlayStation 2. They were saying a Millennium console, and this is PlayStation 1. You guys have to remember what you're looking at here. It's a PlayStation 1, and that's how it looked. But this was pretty darn good for a PlayStation console. It was a true competitor to Nintendo 64, and I think it pretty much, I wouldn't say it owned Nintendo 64, but it really put a lot of heavy load on Nintendo 64. Like, Nintendo 64 had to really, push their gaming lineup.
Who are you? Oh, you must be the new guy. Leon. Sorry, but it looks like your party has been canceled.
What happened?
About 2 months ago, there was this incident involving zombies in a mansion located in the outskirts of this city. Chris and the other STARS members discovered that Umbrella was behind everything. They risked their lives to reveal the truth, but no one believed them. Not long after that, all this started to happen.
Hang in there.
Don't worry about me. Just rescue the survivors in the other rooms. Here, take this key card. You should be able to unlock the doors in the hall with this. Now go.
But
Just go.
fine. But I'm coming back for you. Just hold on.
Obviously, when you look at the voice acting, I mean the voiceover and the animation, right now by today's standards, it's kind of like, you know, it's almost laughable. You're like, whoa. But this was something that was acceptable back then. You know, back then, this is what made it really interesting. I remember buying a strategy guide just for this game and Metal Gear, and there was something so unique about those times. Honestly, to me, these were the great gaming times because this was all fresh. This was all new. Everything was new. Everything was evolving. You know what I mean? And it was a great time to be alive because you're part of the history. You're part of something that's historic. This game was historic. Just like Resident Evil 1, Resident Evil 2, it's also historic. And now, as you all know, there's a remake of Resident Evil 2, and it's going to be popping up next year in January, I believe. You know. But what was so unique and interesting about back then, this game, was the fact that the storyline, is the adventure, the storyline of you meeting these new characters, Claire, you know, Leon, Redfield, all of these characters you were meeting throughout the game, and you wanted to find out what's going to happen next. You know, who's behind the umbrella. You know, meeting, getting the conversation with some of these characters, finding out more and more, and then you constantly want to discover more and more what's going on with the umbrella. Was this virus intentionally released or not? So there was all of these elements in the game that make you want to learn more about what's going to happen next. And I think back then this was something that gamers were really hungry for, and we didn't see this before. The games to be matured in this type of a way, you know. Mainly people were playing Nintendo 64 platformers, stuff like that. Sure, there was Quake, there was Doom, but in terms of consoles, Sony really pushed that envelope. They really kind of hit that mature button, the adult, like, we're going to basically create a console that's going to be not just for the casual gamers and kids, but we're going to do something that's going to be a evolution of video games, almost like mature adult digital entertainment, and they really did that here with Resident Evil, with Metal Gear. I mean, there was a Dino Crisis. There were so many games. I mean, I can't think of top of my head, but there were so many original games that came out, you know, and if you can find this game on an emulator, or if you can play it, I would suggest that you guys play it and give it a try. I think you should go back to some of these classic games just to understand, like, how good we have it now in terms of graphics and how much the graphics have evolved. Like when you look at the game like the God of War, Detroit Become Human, Horizon Zero Dawn. I mean, all of these games, when you look at them, the upcoming Red Dead Redemption 2, when you look at the graphics in these new games, they truly are remarkable pieces of art, you know. But the one game I personally believe that pushed the envelope, which I'm going to do on my episode 2, which I will talk about, the one game that truly pushed the envelope in terms of rendering 3D and graphics on console, to me, was the highly anticipated sequel for Metal Gear Solid. And of course, I'm talking about Sons of Liberty. Metal Gear Solid 2, Sons of Liberty, was truly a it was a technical demo of where the video games are going, like the evolution of graphics, the evolution of video games, and what Hideo Kojima was able to do with the motion engine, with the PlayStation 2 GPU, which was back then really, really powerful, guys. The PlayStation 2 was a very powerful console back then, and it also included a DVD player. You know, I think it was probably the best-selling console, probably of all time. Okay, maybe I'm going to go on a limb, but I'm going to say, for me personally, it was the best-selling console of all time. I mean, the stuff that came out on that console, plus it was backward compatible. You could play all of your PlayStation 1 games. So PlayStation 2, pretty much, you didn't need a PlayStation 1. You could use your PlayStation 1 games and play the PlayStation 2 games, play the DVDs. It was truly it's still, right now, if you purchase a PlayStation 2, you don't need PlayStation 1. The amount of games, the amount of rich juggernaut library of games you can play on PlayStation 2, including PlayStation 1 games and PlayStation 2 games, is just ridiculous. And it's a juggernaut of games. And to me, personally, PlayStation 2 is something worth buying on eBay. If you're going to purchase a PlayStation 2, I say definitely buy it. You've got so many games to collect, so many games to play on that thing. And that's why I say, personally, to me, PlayStation 2 was the best-selling console of all time. I mean, really, of all time. That's just my opinion. I know there's SNES, I know there's Genesis, I get it, I understand that. There's Atari, I'm not trying to, Commodore, I'm not trying to take anything away from these other, computers and consoles, but PlayStation 2 was a revolutionary. It was really the 21st century evolution of gaming. The stuff that came out on that console was just top-notch. And like I said, the fact that you could play backward compatible discs with the current PlayStation 2 games, and of course watch DVD movies instead of cassette, it was just remarkable. And look, you guys can look it up. The numbers speak for itself. That was the best-selling console, period. And another thing that was very unique and cool about playing Resident Evil 2 was the fact that there was always these hints and clues where you need to figure out, okay, why do you need that Reuben? Why you need this? Why you need that? Like, you had to go around and collect all of these items to figure out, which one goes where. There was a lot of hidden things in this game for you to unlock. There was also a bunch of puzzles. The one thing that was challenging for me playing Resident Evil was the puzzles. The puzzles in this game sometimes really made you want to think, and I think that's where the challenge came in. That's where the replay value came in, is for you to challenge yourself and figure out these puzzles and put these puzzles together and then play it and unlock everything that you need to unlock. But remember, this is PlayStation 1. This is not PlayStation 2. And even today, when I look at this game after, what, 23, 24 years ago? I think it's 23 years ago. When I look at this game, and it still holds up. You know, it still holds up. Like, I wouldn't have any problem playing this right now. Now, granted, the graphics are outdated, the animation, it's outdated, but there's this nostalgia. That's why I call this episode Nostalgia Commentary, because I grew up with these games. You guys have to remember that. You know, I'm old now. I'm almost 40. So I grew up playing these games, and these games were part of my, if you will, childhood. So it brings back good memories. I had nothing but great memories playing PlayStation 2, Nintendo 64, Dreamcast, Sega Genesis, SNES. I had nothing but a great experience playing these games. Hell, even Commodore 64 and Spectrum ZX. I had such a great experience, and I can't help myself when I look at a game like Resident Evil 2, or Metal Gear Solid 1, Metal Gear Solid 2. By the way, my next episode on nostalgia commentary, it's going to be Metal Gear Solid 1. And then we're going to do Metal Gear Solid 2 and some other games. You guys can send in requests, like what game would you like me to do a nostalgia commentary on my other episodes. I'm going to cover pretty much all of them, but you guys can let me know which one you would like me to commentate, to give you my thoughts and opinions on it, and how it affected me back then when I played these games. You know, some people complained about the camera angles. I remember when they first introduced the Resident Evil, some people complained about that, but I said, well, that's the challenge. Remember, back then, to me, gaming was a challenge. You need to challenge yourself to see how good you are. And, you know, what kind of difficulty are you playing it on? I remember buying all these magazines, PlayStation magazines. There was there's a bunch of gaming magazines, which I'm going to have to do a video and show you some of these old magazines so you guys can look at it. And there was something about buying a magazine, getting these demos, putting it in your console, and checking them out. This was back then where being a gamer was such a great time, where you actually get to try a game. You buy a magazine, you read about the upcoming games, and then there's a demo disc. And on the demo disc, you get to try these demos before you actually purchase a game, you know, and that was great. You know, that's how it should be. You know, not you watching an E3 show or going here, going there. It should be, here's a demo, check it out. Let me know if this is something you would like to purchase down the road. You know, and that was great times. And then you buy the strategy guides, and then, you know, it was pretty cool.
It looks like we're not gonna find your brother here after all. There's no reason for us to stay any longer than necessary. Let's split up, look for any survivors, and get out of here.
Right.
One last thing. Here's a radio. Take it. That way we can keep in touch if anything happens.
I know it's kind of like, kind of cheesy. Look at it today. I mean, I have to say it. You know, I'm not making fun of it, but it's just, it is kind of cheesy when you look the way, like how it was acceptable for us back then to play something like this. But it was acceptable because we haven't never seen anything like this. You know, like you guys gonna laugh on God of War 20 years from now. When you look at God of War, the way it looks, you guys will laugh about it. Because what you're gonna have 20 years from now, it's gonna blow away the God of War today. So, but that's the evolution of gaming. You know, this was the evolution of gaming, and the reason I say, for me personally, was a great time because I just loved the way consoles were back then. You know, I'm not like a huge fan of this whole online, you have to pay the membership for the Xbox Live, PlayStation Plus. Then you got to purchase a game, $60. Then you have to pay for the DLC. Then you have to pay for the season pass. Then the worst of all, microtransactions. And you constantly have to be logged in online in order for you to play a game. Excuse me. So I was never a fan of that, and I'm still not a fan of that. I don't like it. I think it's gross because I'm coming from the past, from all these games. I played all these games. I lived through these games. So it just hurts me to see the way the gaming has evolved. You know, and no one seems to talk about this. You know, I mean, no one seems to mention this. Maybe I think Giant Bomb, one of those guys from Giant Bomb, they're like my generation. They have mentioned it a little bit. They said, you know, we miss the days when you didn't have to be connected online, or you didn't have to pay a subscription to be on some kind of an online service where you just simply put in a disc, put your memory card in there, and you're good to go. And you take that console with you everywhere you go. You plug it into your TV. That's it. You don't need internet. To me, that's such a relief. And I think this is the reason why I want to collect all of these consoles from eBay. I want to buy all of them. PlayStation 2 and Nintendo 64. I want to collect all of these consoles. Dreamcast. Because to me, that was and still is the best way to play video games without being on the internet. You know, like just the idea that I don't have to be online, that I can just take this console with me, plug it into a TV, and I'm good to go. All I need is electricity and a TV, and I'm good to go. I don't have to be online. I'm off the grid, and I can do all of this, play these games. That's to me the true definition of console and the true definition of gaming, you know. But again, you know, things have changed. Obviously, the internet has progressed so much. The evolution of the internet has progressed to the point where people actually cannot live without being online. You know, imagine if internet goes down and your cell phones goes down for some weird reason. Let's say we have some kind of solar, I don't know, some kind of solar, what you would call it. I'm not a NASA scientist, but let's just solar flares. Okay, solar flares. They hit our atmosphere and they knocked out all of our towers, electricity, facilities, and the satellites, and that's it. You can't use your cell phone, you can't use your internet, and you're off the grid. I think it would be a chaotic. I mean, seriously, it would be chaotic. That's how far the internet has evolved, and that's why I'm mentioning this, because I'm telling you that's how far internet has evolved. And I get it. I understand that we can't right now pretty much imagine being without online. Like, it would be just simply impossible. People can't even put their cell phones down without actually looking at it, at least every 5 minutes. Or did someone call me? Or did I get a message? Or they're constantly being connected online. You know, and Steven Spielberg talked about this on the one of the interviews. It was on BBC, I think, or one of the UK news station. They asked them, they were interviewing him about Ready Player One and the way technology is advancing and all this stuff in virtual reality and this whole escapism and being connected. And the lady asked him, is there any way that maybe we can come back to the way it used to be? And Steven Spielberg just kind of, you know, laughably looked at this interviewer and says, no way. You can't change this. You know, you can't stop this evolution progression. It's only going to evolve. And that's the thing about technology. The point I'm bringing up with Steven Spielberg and the point I'm making up here with the internet is that you can't stop the evolution. of gaming. You can't stop the evolution, period. All right, the evolution, Jesus Christ, the evolution has killed dinosaurs. You know, gigantic, enormous creatures. Wiped them all out. The evolution is only going to continue. So same thing goes with these video games. The evolution itself, it's a process that's a continuous process. And it doesn't care if you like it or don't like it. It's going to continue. And it's going to progress. That's the evolution. And what we were seeing here back then, to my point, with Resident Evil 1, Resident Evil 2, Metal Gear, and all of these games, hell, even Siphon Filter, we were seeing the evolution of video games. Video games taking a different step in a different direction. And I think PlayStation 2 was definitely that new step in a different direction. But PlayStation 1 was that first major step. Something totally different than Nintendo 64 or Sega Genesis. Because back then, Nintendo 64 and Sega Genesis, they were playing it safe. They were just pretty much in competition with each other. But then Sony came along and Sony changed everything. And I know that my Xbox friends don't want to hear this, but this is the fact. Sony was way before Microsoft. Microsoft was mainly involved with the software, the Windows, okay? That's what they were mainly focused on, okay? Later on, they came into the gaming scene. And Sony was the one that pushed the first leap of evolution of gaming. And they continued to do that for 25 years. No one can deny them that for 25 years that they haven't achieved that in almost 3 decades. Almost 3 decades. Almost 3 decades. It's going to be 3 decades in 2024 or 2023. So they've been doing this for a long, long time. And the type of games they have produced, no one can deny that. These are the facts. You know, I don't care if you're the Xbox fanboy, but these are the facts. You know, these are the facts. They're historical facts. It doesn't matter if you agree or disagree with those facts, but they're the facts. They're there. They're part of history. So you can deny it all you want, but that it's always going to be there. The history, it's always going to be the history that it is, the true history, the factual history. I like to use the term the factual history, not somebody else's agenda, idea of what happened, but a factual history. And Sony delivered on that and pushed the envelope with their original first-party games and just the ideas that came floating, man. Even with PlayStation 3, Uncharted, The Last of Us, they always continued to push the envelope. And of course, you know, Guns of the Patriots with Metal Gear Solid 4. Never a shortage of just pushing that envelope evolution of new fresh ideas in gaming, you know. But of course, Nintendo has pushed that envelope as well. Sega has pushed that envelope as well. But Sony was the one that truly pushed the Millennium evolution of digital gaming to a new, mature, adult way of playing. They really pushed it to that mature adult way of playing. With Sega, we didn't see that much. You know, with Nintendo, we didn't see that much. But with Sony, we definitely seen that maturity of gaming pushed to a whole new level. Hopefully, this makes sense to what I just said here. That's my approach. Like, the whole point of me doing these commentaries, and this is my first episode. It's about giving you guys my nostalgic point of view of what these games to me meant and how I feel about them and why they're so substantially important. As I said earlier in my video, for a lot of you this will be kind of like for those of you who are teenagers, 15, 16, 17 years old, if you never played Resident Evil 2, which I don't assume you did, because you weren't born when this thing was released, and you were probably too young, 5, 6 years old. Maybe you couldn't play this game because it was mature. So for you, this will be kind of strange to see me talk about these games, but you have to remember, I lived through these games. I played these games. I was lucky enough to live through the evolution of gaming. I was a child of the 80s. I played everything from Atari, all different types of Atari models, Spectrum ZX, Commodore 64, Amiga 500. The list goes on and on. SNES, Sega Genesis, all of these games. And yes, and of course, my first IBM PC, where I played Police Quest. Played a bunch of Police Quest on the PC. And of course, Alien vs. Predator, Quake, Doom. So I've been constantly living through the evolution of gaming, and this is why I can call myself a gamer, because I lived through this. I owned every console. I played every computer, console, handheld device. I lived through all of this, through this evolution of what, 40 years, the evolution of gaming, and I can call myself a true gamer because I did live through all of this, and I had owned and played and tried all of these consoles, all of these games, okay? So I can say it, that I had been through all of them, played all of them, and can give you my perspective as a gamer. Now, a gamer to me, it's someone that is going to try every console, that is going to try every gaming console or every gaming PC or any type of new evolution of console gaming, any type of gaming, a gamer will try. And I put myself in that category. And to me, that's what being a true gamer means, is someone that is willing to try everything in terms of gaming. Someone that's not going to be biased. People ask me, when did fanboyism started? Like, when did the fanboy... There was always fans. You know, you always said fans, even in the 80s, even in early 80s, you know, I have Commodore 64, or I have a PC Spectrum, or I have a 128, you know, megabyte, whatever, what the hell, I don't even know what it was, Amiga 500, or I have Amiga 500, it's better than your Commodore 64, whatever, it was a 64, no, it was a 64 kilobytes, I'm sorry. I have 128 kilobytes. My 128 kilobytes destroys your, you know, whatever, 6-bit Commodore 64. So I can't, on top of my head, think of the technological aspect of it and what they were using back then. I think it was kilobytes, not the megabytes. Megabytes was something that was introduced to IBM PCs. I have a 8 megabyte computer. Ooh. And it was a big deal. So there was still a little bit of fanboyism back then. But it wasn't to the, like this crazy, dangerous, almost dangerous, fanatic kind of, it's almost like a tidal wave. And I'm trying to phrase this carefully. And the point I'm trying to come across, yes, there was a short burst of fans, okay? But they weren't as crazy as the fanboys are today. Today, it's almost like an epidemic, okay? Back then, sure, it existed a little bit, but it wasn't to the point where it is right now. Right now, it's just extreme. The fanboyism has gone to the new level of extreme, which I have, honestly, it scares the shit out of me sometimes. I just can't believe that there's actually, that this exists, you know. But yeah, so when people ask me when did fanboyism started, it all started through the evolution. You know, it's all evolution. You know, okay, I have a Commodore. Okay, mine's better than yours. Then I have a Nintendo. You have Sega. Now I got Sony. I think it all started pretty much with Sony and Microsoft. These were the two biggest rivals, Sony and Microsoft. And I think that's where the fanboyism started to really grow, like grow into like some ridiculous waves of epidemic numbers, if you will. And today, obviously, when you look at it, it has evolved and has just spread out. Like, how would I phrase this? I'm trying to use careful words because I don't want to offend anybody. The best word I can use, it's almost like an epidemic. It has spread like an epidemic, honestly, and it's to me it is crazy to see this. I know that it's not crazy for you guys, younger generation, because for you this is acceptable. You were born into this generation, so for you this is standard. This is acceptable. But this is coming from a guy who's 40 years old, who lived through all this. For me, I can't accept this. You know, to me, this is not what the gaming is all about. Okay? The definition of a true gamer, it's somebody who plays everything. It's someone who owns all of the devices, plays all the games, and it's unbiased, and it doesn't really care which system has this, which system doesn't, you know, whatever. A true gamer, it's somebody that's always going to play whatever he can get his hands on, you know. Like, oh, there's a new console, buying it, cool, I'm going to try it out, I'm excited. That's the true gamer. Someone who's always looking forward to some new gaming experiences. And he doesn't give a damn whether he plays it on Sony, Microsoft, whatever. And I think this is the point that, Phil Spencer, because Phil Spencer, it's somebody that, you know, it's probably my generation. And he came from an era like I did, where being a gamer was about playing everything, playing all types of different games, playing Commodore, Atari, Amiga, Nintendo, Sega, variety of different types of handheld games. This is coming from somebody who lived through the evolution of gaming and loves to be able to play all of these games, experience all of these games. That's what being a gamer really is about. It's about you experiencing all of these games and all of these elements of these games, you know. And I just felt that to me personally, Phil Spencer, when he talked about cross platforms, and when he said on the interview, one of the interviews that he did earlier last week, he said, I think it was a giant bomb, he said that for him, he's disappointed that, you know, Sony doesn't want to, he didn't say it like this, but he kind of, in those kind of terms, vis-a-vis Sony, he said, I like to be able, said, I don't want to be living in a world where my daughter has a Xbox and my son has a PlayStation, but they can't play certain games cross-platform. They can't meet each other on the same ecosystem. And they have to choose, if they're going to play together, they have to choose either Sony or Microsoft. They said, I don't want to live in that world. I said, I want to live in a world where it doesn't matter what console brand you have, you can be connected and you can play cross-platform together. So he's coming from this point of view where he despises the fanboyism, just like I despise anyone who's a fanboy. I just simply can't stand fanboys. I'll just say it flat out. I just can't stand fanboys. Whether you are a fanboy of certain consoles or you're a fanboy of a certain brand of TVs, like those OLED fans, you know, I simply despise, no one despises more than me, the fans, the fanboys. Okay? Because to me, you are not really contributing anything except just blindly defending a product because that is your agenda. That's what you live for. Like, you live for Sony. Like, you live... It is like a sickness, honestly, mental sickness. You live for Sony, for a company, for a corporation that you don't even work for. You're a slave to that corporation. You don't work for them. They're not paying you money, but you gladly gonna obey them. You're gonna kneel down, you're gonna pray to them, and you're gonna give them the money. It's like a cult. And I don't like that. To me, that's not what being a gamer it's all about. Being a gamer, it's about experiencing all of these games. And the reason I brought this up, it's because that's what this nostalgia episodes are really about. It's about for me to walk you down a memory lane and show you what being a gamer was like back then. You know. Like I said, if you guys have any other suggestions for me to try, maybe Red Faction or any of these games, you know, I'll be more than happy to go through them and play them and just talk about them, give you guys my commentary, you know. But going back to the Resident Evil 2, yes, there is a remake, and obviously you guys have seen how great the remake looks of Resident Evil 2, but of course it's going to look great because technology has advanced. You know, the ability of the motion cap, the higher polygons of textures, dynamic light, DirectX, all of this stuff that can be implemented into a game today, of course is going to make it even more better. And I would love to see the remake of all these games. I would love to see the remake of Metal Gear Solid Tactical Espionage Action, first part, Sons of Liberty, second part. I would love to see of course, Guns of the Patriots remake. I would love to see Snake Eater remake. That would be great. Final Fantasy VII. I think they're working on it, a remake. So all of these games, Silent Hill remake needs to happen for sure. Silent Hill 2 remake needs to happen for sure. All of these remakes should happen, and I think they need to happen, in my opinion, in my honest opinion, you know. Now, this Resident Evil 2, as you see right now, going through all these corridors, it was very challenging. You know, it was challenging because, and this is where you needed a strategy guide. This is exactly, you know, you couldn't go online to find out, like, what I should do here. You had to buy a strategy guide to, oh, here we go.
Sorry about that. When I saw the uniform, I thought you were another zombie.
Who are you?
Ada Wong.
And what are you doing here?
I'm looking for some guy named Ben. He's one of those reporter types, always looking for a scoop. I heard he was locked up in the cell block, only there's a wrecked car barring the entrance. I've been trying to find another way inside. If we work together, we can move this thing. Give me a hand here, will you?
And of course, the introduction of Ada Wong here. This is where we first get introduced to Ada Wong, And this was another cool thing about the Resident Evil 2. You meet new characters. You meet Ada Wong. You also, I believe, we get introduced to a... What's her name? There was another character that was introduced here. Monica something. Oh my god, I forgot some of these names. You guys have to forgive me. And this was very unique and cool because as you progress throughout Resident Evil 2, like I said, we just met Ada Wong, and then we meet some more characters. It was pretty cool, and it was something that made you want to play Resident Evil even more, because now you get introduced to more characters. Now you're learning more about these characters and where the storyline is going to go. Okay, like I said, Ada Wong, just got introduced to her, so let's listen to it.
His name's John. He was working for a branch office of Umbrella based in Chicago, but he suddenly disappeared 6 months ago. I heard a rumor that he's here in the city.
I don't know anything. And even if I did, why would I want to tell you?
Okay, I say we leave him in there. Does anyone know where they put the key to this cell?
I have it right here, officer. But I'm not about to leave this cell. Those zombies aren't the only things crawling around out there.
What was that?
Like I said, I'm not leaving this cell. Get out of here before you lead it right to me.
Hey, I'm not going anywhere. I'm the only cop left alive in this building.
What?
Look, if you want to live, then you're gonna have to leave with me.
But do you even know how to get out of the city? There's a kennel in the back of the building. Inside the kennel is a manhole. Go through and it'll lead you to the sewer entrance, but it won't be easy.
All right, I'm going.
And like I said, this was something that made you wanna continue playing on and learn about these characters, and to see it was really storyline. It was story driven. You know, a lot of these games were like an adventure action games that were story driven, and this was something very new. And as a gamer back then, you were like, man, this is like a cinematic experience. I need to find out what's going to happen here. Who is this Ada Wong, and what does she know about the Umbrella? And then Claire. You know, we met Claire in the beginning, and Chris. Leon comes in, you know, later on, but this was something that made you become a fan of Resident Evil series because of the rich characters. And I think I mentioned this about Metal Gear. I think why Metal Gear and Resident Evil were so successful, it was because of, number one, storyline and rich characters, you know, and that's what made the Resident Evil and Metal Gear such a big franchise, because of these characters. And let's not forget Final Fantasy. Obviously, Metal Gear, Resident Evil, and Final Fantasy was due to the fact of such rich characters and storyline. But it's mainly a storyline with rich characters. And as you can see, back then, playing Resident Evil 2, you get introduced to all of these new characters. And I find it very appealing. I found it appealing back then, just like I find it appealing today. And I think you guys will have a blast playing the remake version of this, especially for those of you, even for me, I forgot some of these characters' names. It was me watching this now. It's almost like me reliving like a brand new game again, because it's been a long time since I played it.
Think I've introduced myself yet. My name's Leon. I'm with the RPD. It's a dead end.
You think we can get upstairs through this shaft? Give me a boost. I'll go and check.
And like I said earlier, it's you being totally captivated by learning about these characters, and then you get to play these characters as well. This is another cool feature about the Resident Evil, that you can switch between the characters and learn more about these characters. So it really drove you to finish the game, to learn more about the Resident Evil story and the Umbrella. And you couldn't wait to get the next Resident Evil. Resident Evil 3 Nemesis came out after this. Resident Evil 3 Nemesis was okay, but I thought it could have been better. However, the Resident Evil 3 Nemesis was necessary to give us an introduction to some more characters and some more storyline, so we can find out about that Umbrella Corporation and Whisker and all these other characters that came on board later on throughout the different chapters of the franchise. Resident Evil 4, to me, was another groundbreaking step, another evolution of Resident Evil. I think Resident Evil 4 is where we truly have seen a new step. Like Metal Gear Solid 2, this for Capcom, what Hideo Kojima did for Metal Gear Solid 2, pushing it in a new technological venues, Resident Evil 4 was that technological venue that pushed it even further, you know. And that's what I think Capcom did with Resident Evil 4. And of course, Resident Evil 5 pushed the envelope even further. And then, of course, Resident Evil 6, and then we got Resident Evil 7. So it continued to push the envelope, you know. So, I don't know if there's anything else I can say about this first episode. I spent an hour and 3 minutes. I'm going to try to do each episode 1 hour, you know. And I think 1 hour, it's more than enough time for me to talk about this game and my experience on. I think I covered pretty much everything. I told you how I felt about this game and what an impact it had on me, and I actually gave you some history, backbone history about the video games and all of these elements, you know, so why they were so significant to me, why I loved playing these games, why they were such a big important, you know, part of my childhood and growing up playing these games. So that's what I'm pretty much doing on this this new thing called nostalgia commentary. You know, this is my first episode. My next episode is going to be a Metal Gear Solid 1, and I'll talk about significance of Metal Gear Solid 1 and Hideo Kojima. But for right now, it's Resident Evil 2. It's my first episode. Hopefully you guys like this, and let me know. You can also write down in the comments below. You can also let me know what type of games would you like me to do nostalgic commentary on. I call it nostalgia commentary, or maybe I should change it just to a nostalgic commentary episodes, and I think that's what I'm gonna go with. Nah, I think nostalgia commentary, it's better. It sounds better. So I'll just keep it as a nostalgia commentary. This is my first episode. Hopefully you guys liked it. Hopefully you enjoyed it. And I'm hoping that me doing these nostalgia commentary episodes of video games will give you some perspective of how games have evolved and how these games had an impact on me and on a bunch of other millions and millions of other gamers out there, and how it had pushed the industry to a whole new different direction and whole new different level. So thank you for watching this first episode of Nostalgia Commentary, and I'm gonna see you guys on the episode 2. If you guys have any other suggestions, let me know. Write the comment down below. Each episode is going to be 1 hour. Okay, I think 1 hour is more than enough for me to give you my thoughts and views and opinions and stuff like that. Again, thank you for watching. I'll catch you guys on the episode 2. Have a good one, though. Take care.